There is something you believe about reality so deeply that you probably never think about it. You believe that separate things are actually separate. You are here. Another person is over there. A chair occupies one place. A star occupies another. Distance separates objects, and if one thing influences another, something has to travel between them. A signal, a force, a particle, information. This idea feels so obvious that calling it an assumption sounds almost ridiculous. Of course, things are separate. Just look around. Your phone is not your hand. Your hand is not the wall. The wall is not the moon. Reality appears to be made of individual objects existing in individual places. For centuries, physics largely agreed. The universe could be imagined as an enormous machine. Objects had positions. They moved according to forces. Causes produced effects. And if you knew enough about the present, at least in principle, you could predict what would happen next. Then, physicists looked deeper. Much deeper. And the universe stopped behaving like the universe we thought we knew. At the quantum scale, particles do not behave like tiny versions of everyday objects. They can exist in states that do not have a single definite value until an interaction or measurement occurs. And under certain conditions, two particles can become linked in a way that seems almost impossible. This phenomenon is called quantum entanglement, and it forces us to question one of the most basic assumptions behind ordinary reality: separation. Imagine creating two particles together. Then you move them far apart, maybe across a laboratory, maybe in principle across an enormous distance. If the particles are entangled, quantum theory describes them as parts of one shared state, not simply two independent objects carrying secret instructions. One system, two locations. When measurements are made on them, their results can show correlations stronger than classical physics allows. This is where things become strange, because ordinary intuition says, if two objects are far apart, they should behave independently unless something travels between them. But entangled systems do not fit comfortably into that picture, and this disturbed Albert Einstein. He famously criticized what he saw as a kind of spooky action at a distance. The problem was not that Einstein disliked strange ideas. He had already helped transform our understanding of space and time. The problem was deeper. He believed quantum mechanics might be incomplete. Perhaps, he thought, particles already carried hidden information determining what their measurement outcomes would be. If that were true, reality could remain familiar. Objects would still possess definite properties. Distance would still separate them. Nothing mysterious would need to happen between measurements. The particles would simply have known the answer all along. It was a reasonable possibility. Until physicist John Bell found a way to test the idea. Bell showed that theories based on local hidden variables place mathematical limits on how strongly certain measurements can be correlated. Quantum mechanics predicted correlations that could exceed those limits, so experiments could decide. And over decades, increasingly sophisticated experiments have repeatedly supported the quantum predictions. The world does not behave as though particles simply carry ordinary local hidden instructions waiting to be revealed. Something about the classical picture has to give. This is one of the reasons quantum physics can feel so disturbing. It is not merely strange mathematics. It tells us that some of the concepts that seem most obvious in daily life may not describe reality at its deepest level: locality, independence, definite properties. Perhaps these are not the foundations. Perhaps they are features that emerge at the scale we inhabit. But we need to be careful here. Quantum entanglement does not allow you to send a message instantly across the universe. You cannot choose the result of a quantum measurement and use it like faster-than-light Morse code. The correlations are real, but they cannot be controlled in that simple way. So entanglement does not overthrow relativity by giving us instant communication. The universe preserves a strange balance. The connections are stronger than classical intuition expects. but they cannot be used to transmit information faster than light. And that makes the mystery even deeper, because there is no obvious signal traveling from one particle to another. It may be more accurate to stop thinking of them as two completely independent objects in the first place. They are parts of a single entangled system. And here is where this becomes more than a physics lesson, because the human mind is built to think in objects. This person, that tree, this body, that planet. This event happened here, that event happened there. We divide reality automatically. It helps us survive. You need to know where the predator is, where food is, where your body ends, where the cliff begins. Our everyday perception depends on boundaries, but nature is not obligated to organize itself according to the categories that helped our ancestors survive. This is easy to forget. Human intuition evolved at the scale of animals, rocks, trees, and moving objects, not atoms, not photons, not relativistic speeds, not quantum fields. So when quantum mechanics feels impossible to visualize, perhaps that is not a failure of physics. Perhaps it is a limitation of intuition. Imagine trying to explain the internet to an insect. The insect interacts with the physical effects of your phone: heat, light, movement. But the invisible network connecting billions of devices would be completely outside the framework its nervous system evolved to understand. Maybe human beings face something similar when confronting the deeper structure of reality. We are extremely intelligent animals, but still animals. Our brains evolved for a particular environment, and there is no guarantee that the architecture useful for survival is the architecture best suited to intuitively understand the foundations of the universe. This is one of the most humbling lessons of quantum mechanics. Reality does not need to feel reasonable to a human brain. Consider how strong the feeling of separation is. You look at two objects and they clearly occupy different locations. One can move without the other. You can touch one and not the other. At our scale, treating them as independent is extremely useful. But quantum theory reminds us that useful descriptions are not always fundamental descriptions. Think about temperature. You can say that a room is warm. Warmth feels like a basic property, but at a deeper level, temperature relates to the statistical behavior of enormous numbers of particles. The everyday property emerges from something beneath it. A single molecule does not possess temperature in the same way an entire gas does. The property belongs to the larger system. Could separation work somewhat similarly? Perhaps the distinct objects of everyday life are real and useful at our scale, without being the most fundamental way nature is organized. This is one of the possibilities suggested by modern physics. Reality may be less about isolated things and more about relationships. That idea is profound, because classical thinking usually begins with objects. First there is particle A, then there is particle B, then we ask how A interacts with B. Quantum theory sometimes forces us to begin with the system instead. The relationship is not merely something added after the objects exist. The joint state can be fundamental to the description. The whole can contain information that cannot be reduced to separate independent descriptions of the parts. This runs directly against one of our favorite strategies for understanding anything. Break it apart, study each piece, understand the pieces, then understand the whole. This works extraordinarily well in many areas. Take apart a clock and examine the gears. Disassemble an engine. Study the organs of a body. Separate a problem into smaller problems. Human intelligence loves decomposition, but entanglement shows that sometimes separating the pieces can remove information that belongs only to the relationship between them. The whole is not always just a pile of independent parts, and that creates a philosophical shift. What if relationships are more fundamental than we intuitively assume? Again, this does not mean that quantum entanglement proves that all human beings are psychically connected. It does not prove telepathy. It does not prove manifestation. It does not prove that thinking about someone changes their physical state across the planet. Quantum physics is frequently borrowed to justify ideas that the experiments themselves do not establish. We do not need those claims. The actual science is already strange enough. Entanglement tells us that nature contains correlations that cannot be explained by ordinary local hidden variable models. That alone forces us to reconsider what we mean by independence. And then another question appears. If the quantum world is so strange, why does your everyday world look so normal? Why does your coffee cup stay on the table? Why does your chair have a definite position? Why are you not constantly witnessing objects existing as visible clouds of possibility? Part of the answer involves something called decoherence. You can choose what to focus on, but much of mental life simply appears. A memory arrives, an emotion rises, a word comes to mind, an idea suddenly appears while you are showering, and yet you still call all of it my mind. This reveals something important. The conscious self may not be the commander we imagine it to be. It may be closer to a spotlight, a narrow beam of awareness illuminating one small area at a time. And because that illuminated area feels so vivid, we mistake it for the entire stage. This spotlight has a name: the ego. Not ego in the sense of arrogance, not believing you are better than everyone else. Here, ego means the mental image you use to organize the idea of yourself. I am this person. I have this history. I believe these things. I want these things. I am afraid of these things. This identity is incredibly useful. It helps you navigate relationships, make plans, protect yourself, understand your place in the social world. But a useful model can become dangerous when you forget that it is a model. Imagine a radar system on a ship. Its job is to look for obstacles, rocks, storms, other vessels, danger. The radar is extremely important, but imagine if the entire ship believed it was the radar. Then existence would become nothing but scanning for problems. Where is the threat? What could go wrong? Who is judging me? What might I lose? What should I defend against? This is very close to what happens when we identify completely with the thinking mind. The mind is brilliant at detecting problems. It compares, predicts, analyzes, remembers, evaluates. But if you believe that constant mental activity is the whole of who you are, life easily becomes a permanent state of tension. Because the problem-solving mind rarely reaches a final destination. There is always another problem, another uncertainty, another future to prepare for, another comparison, another reason to worry. You solve one problem. The mind immediately finds another. And because you identify with the voice finding the problems, you begin believing, I am anxious, I am afraid, I am inadequate, I am behind. But notice the language. You rarely say, an anxious thought is appearing. You say, I am anxious. A temporary state becomes an identity. This is one of the subtle tricks of the ego. It turns experiences into definitions. You fail at something. The experience says, that didn't work. The ego says, I am a failure. Someone rejects you. The experience says, this person did not choose me. The ego says, I am unlovable. You feel lost. The experience says, I don't know what to do right now. The ego says, I have no direction in life. One is temporary. The other becomes a story. And once the story becomes familiar, you begin defending it. Even painful identities can become strangely comfortable. People say, I'm just an anxious person. I've always been like this. I'm terrible with people. I'm unlucky. I'm not creative. I don't trust anyone. It sounds like description, but often it is repetition. The identity becomes so familiar that imagining yourself without it feels almost dishonest. But who would you be without some of these stories? This question can feel uncomfortable because the ego wants definition. It wants boundaries. It wants to know exactly what belongs to me and what belongs to everything else. My body, my thoughts, my achievements, my possessions, my relationships, my beliefs, my life, and outside that boundary, the world. But even physically, that separation is less simple than it appears. The body you call yours is continuously exchanging matter with the environment. You breathe air in. You breathe air out. You eat food and transform it into tissue. Water moves through you. Cells die and are replaced. The body is not an isolated object. It is a process, a pattern maintained through constant exchange. Think about a whirlpool in a river. You can point to it. It has a recognizable form. It appears to be a thing. But the water composing it is constantly changing. The whirlpool is not separate from the river. It is something the river is doing. Your body is similar in at least one important sense. You appear to be a fixed object. But biologically, you are an ongoing process. Matter entering, matter leaving, energy changing form, patterns being maintained for a period of time. You are not standing outside nature. You are something nature is doing. This may sound philosophical, but notice what happens emotionally when you really consider it. Most of us move through life with the strange feeling that we were dropped into the world, as though there is you, and then there is existence. You did not choose where you were born. You did not choose your first language. You did not choose your genetics. You did not choose most of the early influences that shaped you. So life can feel like something happening to you. And if you identify only with the conscious ego, that feeling becomes even stronger. You become a small individual trying to control an enormous universe. No wonder anxiety becomes so easy. You are attempting to control something infinitely larger than yourself while imagining yourself completely separate from it. But consider another perspective. You are not simply inside the world. Your body is made of the world. The same physical elements found throughout nature are temporarily arranged into your form. The oxygen moving through your bloodstream came from outside you moments ago. The carbon in your body has a history far older than your personal identity. The atoms that form you were not created when you were born. Your birth did not create the material. It reorganized it. Seen from this perspective, you are less like a stranger visiting the universe, and more like a temporary expression of it. A wave does not arrive in the ocean from somewhere else. It is the ocean taking a particular form for a moment. Then the form changes. The ocean remains. This does not mean you literally are every object in the universe. It is a metaphor, but it reveals something psychologically useful. Individuality and connection can exist at the same time. A wave has a distinct shape, yet it is never separate from the water. You have a distinct identity, yet your existence depends completely on relationships with things outside the boundaries of your skin. Air, food, other people, language, culture, nature, time, history. Your identity was formed through connection. Even the language you use to think was given to you by other minds. So where exactly does the self begin? And where does it end? Perhaps the answer depends on the level from which you are looking. At one level, you are clearly an individual. You have responsibilities, preferences, a history, a body that no one else occupies. At another level, your identity exists inside larger systems: family, society, ecology, biology, the planet, the universe. Both can be true. The problem begins when we treat only one level as real. When the ego becomes the entire picture, every disagreement feels personal. Every loss feels like an attack on identity. Every criticism becomes dangerous. Every comparison becomes evidence about your worth. You spend enormous amounts of energy protecting an image of yourself. What do they think of me? Do I look successful? Do I appear intelligent? Am I important? Am I falling behind? The ego creates a character. then spends a lifetime defending the character. But there are moments when the character temporarily disappears. You may have experienced this without noticing. During intense creativity, while listening deeply to music, watching the ocean, running, dancing, laughing uncontrollably, being completely absorbed in something you love. For a few moments, you stop thinking about yourself. There is simply experience. Psychologists sometimes describe certain versions of this as flow. The constant internal narration becomes quieter. Time may feel different. Self-consciousness decreases. And strangely, people often describe these moments as some of the times they feel most alive. Why? Perhaps because constantly thinking about yourself is not the same thing as being yourself. The ego narrates experience, but narration and experience are different. Imagine watching a sunset while simultaneously thinking, "This is beautiful. I should take a picture. I wonder how I look here. I need to post this. I hope people like it. When should I leave? What am I doing tomorrow?" The sunset is happening, but much of your attention is inside the story. Now imagine the narration stops for 10 seconds. You simply see color, light, space, no commentary. Right now, countless signals exist around you that you cannot experience directly. Radio waves, infrared radiation, ultraviolet light, frequencies too high or low for your ears, chemical signals too subtle for your nose. Your experience feels complete only because your brain does not show you what is missing. That may be the first illusion of perception. You don't notice the absence. Imagine wearing a virtual reality headset from the moment you were born. You would never say, "This is the interface." You would simply call it reality. Human perception may operate in a similar way, not because the world is fake, but because what you experience is an interface between an unimaginably complex environment and a nervous system that needs to act quickly. You do not need to perceive every physical detail of an apple. You need to know, can I eat it? Can I reach it? Is it ripe? Does it belong to me? The brain simplifies. It organizes. It predicts. It removes enormous amounts of information. And then it presents you with the result. Reality feels simple because your brain has already done the complicated part. Vision is one of the clearest examples. Your eyes do not send a little movie into your head. Light hits the retina. Signals are transformed into neural activity. Information travels deeper into the nervous system. The brain combines this with memory, expectation, attention, and context. Then perception emerges. You experience a stable world, but that stability is partly constructed. You have blind spots in your visual field, yet you do not walk around seeing holes. Your brain fills them in. Your eyes move constantly, yet the world does not appear to shake violently. Your brain stabilizes it. You blink thousands of times, yet consciousness does not feel like a film filled with black frames. Your brain edits the interruption away. You are living inside a beautifully produced version of reality. And like any good editor, your brain hides the cuts. This becomes obvious when perception fails. Optical illusions can make two identical lines appear different. A still image can seem to move. A color can appear different depending on the colors surrounding it. You can know intellectually that you are looking at an illusion and still be unable to stop seeing it. That is extraordinary. Knowledge does not always override perception. The brain continues showing you its interpretation even after you know the interpretation is misleading. Which raises a disturbing question. How many other things do you experience with complete confidence simply because you have never discovered the illusion? And this problem does not stop with vision. Your brain constructs much more than color and shape. It constructs meaning. Imagine receiving this message from someone you care about. Fine. One word. Nothing more. What does it mean? Maybe they are genuinely fine. Maybe they are angry. Maybe they are tired. Maybe they are distracted. The word itself does not contain the emotional reality. Your brain supplies it, and what your brain supplies depends partly on you. If you are already anxious, you may read rejection. If you are angry, you may read disrespect. If you feel secure, you may read nothing unusual at all. Same message, different internal realities. This is where perception becomes psychological. Your brain does not merely interpret light and sound, it interprets situations, faces, silence, uncertainty, the intentions of other people, and those interpretations are influenced by previous experience. This means you do not only see the world, you see the world through what has happened to you. A person who has repeatedly experienced betrayal may become unusually sensitive to signs of betrayal. Someone who has experienced rejection may notice signs of exclusion other people overlook. Someone raised around constant danger may interpret ambiguity as threat. This is not weakness, it is prediction. Your brain is trying to use the past to understand what is happening now. And most of the time, this strategy works well enough. But sometimes the past becomes too powerful. Then you are no longer responding only to what is happening. You are responding to what your brain thinks the situation resembles. And this can make reality feel more objective than it actually is. You say, "That person doesn't like me." But perhaps what you truly know is, "My brain interpreted their behavior as rejection." Those statements feel similar. They are not. One claims knowledge of external reality. The other acknowledges an internal interpretation. That small difference creates psychological freedom. Because interpretations can be questioned, reality becomes even more complex when groups of people begin sharing interpretations. Consider money. A banknote is physically just material with symbols printed on it. A number in your bank account is electronic information. Yet entire lives are organized around those symbols. People work for them, fight over them, move countries because of them, feel powerful because they possess them, feel ashamed because they lack them. Money works because enormous numbers of people participate in the same shared meaning. The same is true of borders. From space, there is no bright line separating one nation from another. But those invisible lines can determine language, rights, obligations, opportunity, and identity. The line is conceptual. Its consequences are real. Human beings inhabit two worlds simultaneously: a physical world and a world of meaning, names, laws, status, reputation, marriage, ownership, companies, countries, careers, success, failure. Most of these are not objects in nature in the same way that a mountain is an object. They are collective agreements. But because enough people believe in them and act around them, they become extraordinarily powerful. This is where reality becomes strange. Something does not have to be physically solid to shape your life. An idea can change your behavior. A belief can change a society. A story can survive longer than the people who created it. And sometimes the reality inside your mind becomes more influential than the reality directly in front of you. Think about fear. You can fear something that has never happened. The event exists only as a possibility, yet your heart accelerates. Your muscles tense, your decisions change, your imagined future influences your present body. In that moment, what is real? The future event is not real yet, but the experience of fear certainly is. Human beings constantly live inside realities made from things that are not physically present. Memories, expectations, regrets, plans, fantasies, predictions. We can spend an entire afternoon emotionally responding to a conversation that happened 5 years ago, or a conversation that has never happened at all. Your body sits in the present. Your consciousness moves through time. And perhaps this is why it can be so difficult to determine exactly where reality ends and interpretation begins. Now go deeper. Look at matter itself. Everything around you feels solid. The chair, the floor, your hands. But the solidity you experience is not the same as imagining tiny hard balls packed together with no space between them. At the atomic scale, matter behaves in ways that are nothing like ordinary experience. Atoms contain enormous amounts of space relative to their components. Interactions between electromagnetic forces help create what we experience as resistance and solidity. The everyday world tells you, this is solid. Physics tells you, the underlying structure is far stranger than your senses suggest. Time produces the same problem. It feels universal. 1 second seems like 1 second everywhere. But modern physics showed that measurements of time depend on motion and gravity. The everyday experience of a single universal clock is useful, but it is not the complete description. Again and again, the deeper we investigate reality, the less it resembles ordinary experience. This has caused some people to take an enormous leap. They ask, if our senses already give us an interface rather than the complete structure, could reality itself be some kind of simulation? It is an intriguing hypothesis. Imagine a civilization capable of creating simulated worlds containing conscious beings. If enough simulations were created, some philosophers have argued, perhaps simulated observers could eventually outnumber observers in whatever we call base reality. But this remains speculation. We do not currently possess evidence demonstrating that we live inside a computer simulation. And perhaps the most interesting part of the idea is not whether it is literally true. Perhaps its value is psychological, because it forces you to ask, how would you know if the reality available to you were only one layer of something deeper? A character inside a game experiences the rules of the game as absolute. Gravity works this way. Objects behave that way. Certain boundaries cannot be crossed. From inside the system, the rules look like reality itself. Could human perception have similar boundaries? Not necessarily digital boundaries, biological ones, conceptual ones, cognitive ones. Perhaps there are aspects of existence that our brains simply did not evolve to understand intuitively. A dog cannot understand calculus. Not because calculus does not exist. Its nervous system simply was not built for that kind of abstraction. What makes us certain there are no equivalent limits above human cognition? We often imagine intelligence as though humanity has reached the top. But perhaps some truths are inaccessible to a human brain in the same way that mathematics is inaccessible to an insect. This is where reality becomes humbling, because eventually, every investigation reaches the edge of what we know. Science can measure extraordinary things. Philosophy can sharpen extraordinary questions. Meditative traditions can examine subjective experience. But none of them has yet produced a final explanation for why anything exists at all. Why is there something instead of nothing? Why these laws? Why consciousness? Why does the universe possess conditions capable of producing beings who can ask these questions? Eventually, language begins to fail. We use words like matter, space, time, energy, consciousness, reality. But these words can create the illusion that naming something means understanding it. It does not. The word consciousness does not explain consciousness. The word universe does not explain why there is a universe. A map can help you navigate a country, but the map is not the country. And a theory can help us predict reality without necessarily revealing what reality ultimately is. This may be the deepest hidden layer of all. Not simulation, not quantum mechanics, not mysticism, ignorance. The recognition that whatever reality ultimately is, your experience of it passes through a human nervous system, a human brain, human language, human concepts. You can explore farther and farther, but you cannot step completely outside yourself and inspect existence from nowhere. Every measurement appears within experience. Every theory is understood by a mind. Every question begins in consciousness. And this does not make knowledge useless. It makes curiosity necessary. Because once you realize your brain is showing you a model rather than an unquestionable photograph of reality, something changes. You become slightly less certain. You begin asking, what am I missing? What am I assuming? What part of this situation am I interpreting rather than observing? Could another person genuinely be experiencing this differently? Could something I consider obvious simply be familiar? Those questions are useful far beyond philosophy. They affect relationships, arguments, fear, identity, judgment. Because some of the strongest conflicts in human life happen when interpretation disguises itself as reality. I know what you meant. I know what will happen. I know what kind of person you are. I know what people think about me. I know I cannot change. But often, you do not know. Your brain predicted, interpreted, filled a gap, connected incomplete information with an old memory, and presented the result with the feeling of certainty. Perhaps awareness begins when you learn to separate those two things. What happened? And what did my mind add? Someone did not answer your message. That happened. They don't care about me. That was interpretation. You failed at something. That happened. I am a failure. That was interpretation. Your future is uncertain. That is true. Something terrible is going to happen. That is prediction. Once you begin seeing this distinction, reality becomes larger. Because the old interpretation is no longer the only possible one. And perhaps this is the strange gift hidden inside the limitations of perception. You may never see reality exactly as it is. Maybe no human being can. But you can become increasingly aware of how your mind constructs the reality you experience. You can notice the filter, question the story, widen the frame, and recognize that your first interpretation is not always the final truth. Look around you again. The same room, the same objects, the same sounds. Nothing appears different. But perhaps something is different now. You know that underneath this effortless experience is an enormous process of selection, prediction, and reconstruction. The world you experience is not simply entering your mind. Your mind is participating in the experience. And if that is true, then one of the deepest questions you can ask is not merely, what is reality? It is, how much of the reality I experience is the world? And how much is the way my mind has learned to see it? Because reality may be hidden from you, but so are many of the filters hiding it. And discovering those filters may be one of the closest things we have to seeing more clearly.